The cockroach. Cut off a cockroach's head and the body doesn't die. It walks, it responds to touch, it can survive for weeks. The reason comes down to design, not luck. Cockroaches breathe through small holes across their body called spiracles, not through their mouth or head, so decapitation doesn't suffocate them. Their nervous system isn't centralized either. Clusters of neurons called ganglia are distributed through the body, running basic functions independently of the brain. What actually kills a headless roach eventually isn't blood loss. Insects don't have the kind of pressurized circulatory system that bleeds out fast. It's dehydration and starvation, because without a mouth, it can't drink water. Give it a controlled environment and weeks become the ceiling, not the exception. Some lab specimens have pushed well past a month, kept hydrated by dropper, before dehydration finally caught up with them. The chicken. Mike wasn't a fluke of an axe. The blow missed the vein that would have killed him and left most of the brainstem and cerebellum intact, roughly 80% of his brain by mass, still controlling breathing, balance, and reflexes. The farmer had actually planned to eat him for dinner, and instead ended up feeding him with an eyedropper, corn and water dropped directly into his exposed esophagus. Mike gained weight, grew feathers, and reportedly still tried to crow, air just hissing out where his head used to be. He toured the country as a sideshow act, insured for $10,000. His owners cleared his airway daily with a small syringe, since he couldn't cough or swallow normally. One night, in a Phoenix hotel room, that syringe had been left behind at the venue. Mike's throat blocked with mucus, and this time, nobody could clear it in time. A near miss became an 18-month accident, undone in the end not by the axe at all, but by a piece of equipment left behind in the wrong building. The Planarian flatworm. This is where it stops being about the body outliving the head and starts being about the head coming back. Cut a Planarian in half and the tail end doesn't just survive. It grows an entirely new head with a new brain in about a week. Cut it into dozens of pieces and you get dozens of new worms. The secret is a population of cells called neoblasts, stem cells that make up roughly a fifth of the worm's entire body and can become literally any cell type it needs. Scientists have gone further, training a Planarian to recognize food on a rough surface, cutting off its head entirely, and waiting for a brand new one to regenerate from scratch. Weeks later, once the new head and brain had fully formed, the regrown worm still remembered the training. Nobody fully agrees on how a memory could survive the total destruction of the organ that supposedly held it. The sacoglossan sea slug. This one doesn't lose its head by accident. It does it on purpose. Certain species, like Elysia cf. marginata, will self-decapitate, severing their own neck, and leave the old body behind to rot. The head then survives alone, no heart, no digestive system attached, and within weeks regenerates an entirely new body from scratch. Researchers still aren't certain exactly how a disembodied head keeps itself alive that long, without organs. What is known is that the slugs steal chloroplasts from the algae they eat and embed them in their own skin, letting them photosynthesize like a plant while the new body grows in. An animal powering itself on sunlight while it rebuilds a heart, a gut, and everything else it left behind on purpose. By the way, if you're enjoying this, I post content like this regularly. I'd appreciate it if you subscribed. Thanks. The hydra. Technically, a hydra doesn't have a head in the way we mean it. No brain, no centralized skull. But it does have a distinct head region with a mouth and tentacles, and that region can be removed and regrown, repeatedly, indefinitely. Its entire body is a network of stem cells constantly replacing themselves, and it shows no measurable increase in death rate as it ages. Cut off the head end, and a new one forms within days from a cluster of cells that were never anything close to a nervous system to begin with. Some researchers argue this makes the hydra effectively immortal. Others think that's the wrong question to be asking about an animal that never had a real head to lose in the first place. The starfish. A starfish doesn't have a brain in its central disc the way you'd expect. It has a nerve ring and nerve cords running down each arm, decentralized just like the cockroach, just built for a completely different kind of survival. Cut off the central disc, and in most species, a severed arm with even a fragment of that disc attached can regenerate an entire new starfish. But one species takes it further. The comet star doesn't need a fragment of the disc at all. A single severed arm alone can rebuild an entire body, dragging around a tiny stub where a starfish used to be attached until it's a full animal in its own right. One arm becomes one entire independent animal. It takes months, sometimes over a full year, but the arm doesn't just heal. It rebuilds a mouth, a stomach, an entire nervous system from what was essentially a piece of debris. Fishermen used to chop starfish in half to kill them off oyster beds, thinking they were cutting the population down. It didn't kill them, it multiplied them, one arm at a time. The earthworm. Cut an earthworm in half and the results depend entirely on where you cut. The head end, containing the earthworm's simple brain and clitellum, the band near the front, can often survive and regenerate a new tail. The tail end almost never survives on its own because it lacks the organs needed to regenerate a head. This is where the story gets less magical than people assume. Earthworms don't split into two new worms the way a flatworm does. Most of the time, only one half makes it, and even that depends on species, age, and exactly how clean the cut was. The myth is bigger than the biology, and it's the one entry on this list that mostly doesn't hold up under closer examination. The lobster. Lobsters don't survive decapitation, but they belong on this list for a different reason entirely, because a lobster essentially refuses to stop growing, stop molting, or stop being fertile as it ages. Most animals lose telomerase activity over time, the enzyme that repairs the protective caps on chromosomes. Lobsters produce it continuously in nearly every tissue for their entire lives. Older, larger lobsters are consistently more fertile, not less. What eventually kills them usually isn't age at all. It's the molt itself, a process that gets more physically demanding every single cycle, until one day the exhaustion of shedding an old shell is what a body can't survive. Nobody knows the actual ceiling on a lobster's lifespan because the oldest, largest ones were almost always eaten before anyone could study them. The biggest one ever recorded weighed around 20 kilograms and was likely over a century old. So here's the question nobody's answered yet. If a planarian's severed tail can regrow a brain and somehow keep a trained memory it was never physically connected to, where is that memory actually stored? For decades, the assumption was simple. Memory lives in the brain, full stop. Cut the brain away, and whatever it learned should go with it. Planarians broke that assumption. Some researchers now think memory isn't just neurons, that it might be encoded partly in the body's cells themselves, RNA, epigenetic markers, something outside the skull entirely. If that's true, everything on this list stops being a party trick and starts being a genuine clue. A cockroach walking headless for weeks isn't just an insect quirk. A sea slug growing a body under its own severed head isn't just a strange defense mechanism. Every one of these animals is running on a nervous system that never depended on a single command center the way ours does. We built our entire understanding of survival around the idea that the head is irreplaceable, the seat of everything that makes an animal itself. These 8 are the proof that assumption was never universal. It was just convenient for a body built like ours. If that messed with your head a little, consider subscribing so you don't miss what's next. Thanks for watching.